In life, true strength is not given, it is forged through adversity. Those who are underestimated, overlooked, or oppressed often hold the power to turn the tables when the world underestimates their resilience. Survival is not just about endurance, it's about strategy, courage, and knowing when to act. And sometimes, the greatest victories come not from force, but from intelligence, patience, and the unwavering belief in oneself. Grace, a poised young black woman, had always been underestimated in her corporate world. Chicago's skyline stretched beyond her office window as her phone buzzed. The company's CEO, a white man infamous for ruthless tactics, was calling. "We need to talk," he said, voice cold and measured. Grace knew immediately this was no ordinary conversation. Her manager, Vanessa, a white woman with deep Mafia connections, had long sought to undermine her, spreading whispers that Grace was too ambitious for someone like her. But Grace had her own Alizon underground network of black professionals and former insiders who respected her sharp mind and integrity. The confrontation came in the boardroom, a room heavy with tension. Vanessa's smirk was expectant, ready to see Grace falter. But Grace's calm, steady eyes met hers, unyielding. She knew every secret Vanessa had tried to hide. The Mafia enforcers observing from the shadows could feel the silent storm building between them. "You really think you can control me?" Grace's voice cut through the room, steady and deliberate. "I've been underestimated all my life. I've learned, from the streets to the boardroom, how to turn power to my advantage." Vanessa laughed, bitter and dismissive. "You against me? Against my family?" Grace's smile was faint but knowing. "It's never about family. It's about survival, influence, and seeing the bigger picture when no one else does." Suddenly, the CEO's phone buzzed urgently. One of Vanessa's unauthorized Mafia deals had gone wrong. Panic flashed across her face. Grace seized the moment, executing her meticulously planned strategy. Every alliance, every piece of intelligence she had gathered, unfolded like a masterstroke, turning the tension into her battlefield. By the day's end, Grace had not only survived but had exposed Vanessa's schemes and claimed authority. Chicago's city lights reflected in her eyes as she realized that power was never given, it was taken. And Grace was ready to take hers. Grace stepped out of the boardroom, her heart racing, yet her eyes remained calm and sharp. Every stride carried a silent message. She was no longer someone to be underestimated. Chicago's night air was icy, but Grace felt a fire of power awakening within her. Every move had been meticulously planned. Vanessa had never expected Grace to have a full Mafia network backing her. Every channel, every connection had been under surveillance for weeks. In a dimly lit room, Grace coordinated with her black allies, those abandoned in the corporate world. They were ready to stand firmly behind her. Vanessa's fear was no longer hidden. Every fake smile, every lie, was now exposed under Grace's cold, calculating gaze. Grace remembered her childhood, the years of being underestimated, the constant dismissals that had fueled her resolve. Each whispered conversation, each secret meeting, was a step closer to reclaiming her power. The Mafia allies understood one rule: respect Grace or face consequences. The message was silent but deadly clear. Vanessa's inner circle was beginning to fracture, doubt spreading like wildfire among her closest supporters. Grace's phone buzzed a coded message confirming that timing was perfect. Tonight, she would make her move. She entered the dimly lit lounge, her presence commanding attention. Every eye in the room tracked her with a mixture of awe and fear. The tension was palpable. The room seemed to shrink around Grace as she exuded authority and confidence. Vanessa tried to mask her panic with a tight smile, but the tremor in her hands betrayed her anxiety. Grace's words were sharp, calculated, designed to cut through arrogance and entitlement. No one could ignore her now. Every ally, every follower, watched silently, waiting for Grace's signal to act. The balance of power was about to shift. Vanessa's previous insults and condescensions replayed in Grace's mind, fueling a cold, meticulous determination. Grace's strategy was not just revenge. It was an assertion of her worth and a lesson in respect. The room's air crackled as unspoken threats hung like smoke, filling every corner with tension. Vanessa realized too late that she had misjudged Grace's intelligence and resilience. Grace's calm demeanor masked a storm of calculation and preparation, every step premeditated. Her allies moved with silent efficiency, ensuring no detail of her plan failed. Grace recalled every slight, every moment she was doubted, converting past pain into present power. Vanessa's network of influence began to crumble under Grace's strategic pressure, exposing vulnerabilities. The Mafia's shadow loomed, unseen but omnipresent, backing Grace's every decision. In that room, power dynamics shifted imperceptibly, and Grace's presence alone redefined authority. Vanessa tried to speak, but words faltered under the weight of Grace's gaze. Grace allowed herself a small, measured smile, knowing victory was near but not yet claimed. Her mind raced with contingencies, anticipating every countermove Vanessa might attempt. Every heartbeat reminded Grace of the journey from underestimation to dominance. Tonight, respect would be earned, and lessons would be taught, in the silence of tense, watchful eyes. The night seemed to hold its breath as Grace prepared to reclaim what was always rightfully hers. Grace stepped closer, her shadow stretching across Vanessa's polished desk. Every step was deliberate, a silent declaration of dominance. Vanessa's hands trembled as she reached for her phone, but Grace's eyes held her in place, unyielding and cold. "You thought I was weak," Grace said softly, each word slicing through the tension. "But power isn't given, it's claimed." Vanessa swallowed, her mouth dry. Every insult she had ever thrown at Grace now felt like chains around her own neck. Grace's allies surrounded the room quietly, invisible yet palpable, a silent army ready to enforce her will. "You underestimate me because of my skin, my history, my presence," Grace continued. "But I've learned how to turn every doubt into strength." Vanessa's face paled as memories of past betrayals and manipulations resurfaced. Now reflecting the consequences of underestimating Grace, Grace moved closer, her calm demeanor concealing the storm behind her eyes. The storm that would end Vanessa's arrogance. The room seemed to shrink as tension escalated. Every breath Vanessa took heavy with fear. Grace raised her hand slightly, and her ally stepped forward, signaling that this was no longer just a conversation. Vanessa's power, once untouchable, crumbled piece by piece under Grace's strategic brilliance. "You're afraid," Grace whispered, her voice cutting through the silence like a knife. "And fear always exposes the weak." Vanessa tried to regain composure, but every attempt faltered, her confidence evaporating under Grace's gaze. Grace recalled every slight, every whispered insult, every dismissive glance, each one now fueling her precise control. The Mafia connections Grace had nurtured in secrecy now formed an invisible web, trapping Vanessa with invisible hands. Vanessa's allies wavered, unsure whether to protect her or switch allegiance as Grace's dominance became undeniable. Grace's calm, measured movements reflected her experience. She did not rush. She commanded. Quiet intensity filled the room as Grace's words echoed in the minds of everyone present, asserting irreversible authority. Vanessa's arrogance was replaced with panic, her voice a trembling whisper. You're not just smart, you're ruthless." Grace smiled faintly, acknowledging the truth. Ruthlessness, when paired with strategy, was merely strength reclaimed. Every ally in the room knew this was a turning point, the moment power shifted irreversibly. Grace's presence alone had rewritten the rules of the office, the hierarchy, the unspoken social order. Vanessa's empire, built on manipulation and deceit, began to collapse, the cracks visible to anyone paying attention. Grace's victory wasn't about revenge, it was about recognition, about respect that had been denied for too long. "You should have never doubted me," Grace said, stepping back, letting her triumph settle in the room like a storm's calm aftermath. Vanessa sat frozen, realizing too late that her prejudice and arrogance had sealed her fate. Grace's mind was already moving forward, thinking of the next steps, the future, the legacy she would command. Every heartbeat reminded her that true power comes from resilience, strategy, and unwavering self-belief. The room exhaled a collective tension as Grace's allies silently reinforced her unspoken authority. Tonight, lessons had been learned. Respect was earned, fear had been instilled, and Grace had reclaimed her place at the top. Grace left the room, her steps echoing like the final note of a symphony, leaving a silent warning and undeniable triumph behind. In the silence, a lesson lingered. Power is not about who dominates you, it's about who dares to rise when everyone expects you to fall. In life, true strength is born not from privilege, but from resilience in the face of doubt. Those who are underestimated have the power to rise, turning every slight into fuel for their destiny. Grace's story reminds us, respect is earned, fear is temporary, but unwavering self-belief shapes the legacy we leave behind. Even in a world built on bias and deception, courage and strategy define the victor.